Police are still searching for suspects after an early morning shooting in downtown Toronto.
Right now, police are looking for anybody with dash cam video or surveillance video in the area.
4 people were shot. We'll have the latest from the scene. Plus,
I'm deeply concerned. They're one of the only organizations in the entire city that provides this type of work and triage support for a very vulnerable population.
Maggie's Toronto is shut down for the foreseeable future after a fire tore through their offices last weekend. We look into what happens next for one of the country's oldest sex worker justice organizations. And thousands of homes in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick are without power. We're tracking post-tropical storm Lee.
This is CBC Saturday News.
We begin tonight near Dundas and Sherbourne, where an early morning shooting has left 4 people fighting for their lives. Greg Ross has the latest on the investigation.
Evidence markers were spread out across Sherbourne Street this morning, the aftermath of a violent shooting. This man, who asked not to be identified, lives just steps from where it happened and heard the whole thing.
I woke up, I heard 7 or 8 gunshots. I heard somebody yell, "Gun, get down," and then before I could even make a phone call, the police were already on their way.
Police arrived to a dire situation.
We found 4 victims here, victims of gunshot wounds. They have been taken to various trauma centers within the Toronto region.
According to police, one of the victims suffered life-threatening injuries. 2 others were left in critical condition, and another victim was listed in serious condition. The motive behind the shooting remains unclear, and so far, police have very little to go on when it comes to suspects.
We are looking for multiple offenders right now, but we don't have descriptions to provide at all. Right now, police are looking for anybody with dash cam video or surveillance video in the area to come forward and assist us with identifying the people involved in this.
Many residents we spoke to here today tell us they're not surprised that something like this could happen in this area.
Daytime is all right, but nighttime, you don't know what's going to happen, you know what I mean? You hear shots, people just rowdy, you know what I mean?
It's kind of standard for this particular stretch of area. This definitely has gotten a bit rough the last few years.
Police say there were some witnesses in the area at the time of the shooting who have provided some details. They're also hoping surveillance video from the area will give them a better picture of what happened. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
One of the country's oldest sex worker justice organizations has been forced to temporarily shut down after a fire tore through the building last weekend. As Clara Pasica reports, staff and community members are pushing to ensure that Maggie's clients continue to be supported.
The fire that ripped through this Church of the Holy Trinity building just over a week ago left hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage in its wake, and many community groups who use the space scrambling, including Maggie's Toronto.
In such a short time to lose so much up here is really devastating.
Maggie's provides a range of services to sex workers in the city. The group moved into 7 rooms of the building just a few months ago, renovating the space and launching new programs.
We'd never had a case management program before, ever. We'd never had parenting program ever. Like, we had therapy rooms up there. We had drop-in space.
The fire has forced them to close their doors for now, while they speak to insurance and scramble for a temporary solution.
And what we didn't lose to direct fire damage, we've lost because of a lot of the smoke and the ash and the toxins in the area. So all of our program supplies are completely gone.
In the meantime, the group's executive director fears sex workers will have no other safe space to turn, especially one that's free of discrimination.
We don't know where people will go. We just don't know.
The MPP for the riding says Maggie's plays a critical role in the city, adding that all levels of government should jump in to help.
I would be very interested in knowing if there's community or government spaces that are not operating in full capacity. Can we offer them that space temporarily until they get this one up and running and refurbished off the ground again?
It's not just Maggie's that's been impacted by the blaze. The church's lead caretaker says the community has been gathering clothing and hygiene supplies for months to give to people in need as part of an outreach program set to relaunch next week. Luckily, the supplies weren't destroyed, but they could be contaminated by toxins from the fire.
And we've been telling community members, okay, we're going to be open next week. Or, come Tuesday and get clothes. Come and get supplies from us. And since this fire, we've wondered, did we say all that in vain? Are people going to be able to come here and actually get those supplies?
She says the church is working with emergency cleaners to remove any toxins that might be lodged in the supplies.
Church of the Holy Trinity and Maggie's are now fundraising any way they can, including a concert here tomorrow at the church at 1 p.m. and a GoFundMe page. Clara Pasica, CBC News, Toronto.
Storm Lee has made landfall. It's hit far western Nova Scotia and is expected to track north through New Brunswick and PEI before sunrise Sunday. But as Allison Northcott shows us, Lee was causing plenty of damage in the hours it drew near.
As the storm came in, the wind and waves picked up. Trees were toppled by powerful gusts, leaving tens of thousands without power.
I see out the window now where I am at our emergency operations center that the trees are blowing very significantly. There's a lot of debris on a lot of the roads along the coast. Some roads have had to be closed.
In Fredericton, the storm brought heavy rain, filling streets with water. In other areas, it was the wind causing the most damage.
How you're finding it so far?
Pretty windy. I just come down from the beach, so it's pretty windy.
It slowly came over as the roots raised up.
Mike Chatterton saw a tree uprooted behind his home.
The ground's pretty saturated, so there wasn't very much to hold it, and the canopy's full of leaves, so it catches all the wind.
This store owner was able to keep serving customers thanks to his generator.
We lost power here about, I think it was around 6 o'clock, and it's been out since, so we've got the generator running, got the coolers going, and we're open.
The biggest risk is the high tide and the storm surge. As long as we don't come over the wharf, everything should be good.
In southwestern New Brunswick, with power out for many, volunteers welcomed people in.
Greeting people that come in, making sure that they have something to eat, do whatever they like to do out here, and they are warm and dry.
Officials continue to urge people to be careful, to avoid the roads and the water's edge, because there's still more wind and rain to come. Allison Northcott, CBC News, St. John.
Sophia Kambalia is tracking Storm Lee. Sophia, what's the latest?
Well, we are still watching a slew of watches and warnings, including a tropical cyclone statement and the storm surge warning. This is a big, sprawling system. As seen from space here, it is sluggish. It's spreading out, though, which means more of Atlantic Canada will get a taste of post-tropical storm Lee, but it's losing its bite a little bit. We had one landfall a couple hours ago in parts of Nova Scotia. It is very slowly working its way northwards and eastwards across the Bay of Fundy, and there will be a second landfall for your friends and family in parts of northern New Brunswick in the next couple hours. There will be more coastal flooding and a little bit more rain to come. Much of the rain and peak winds have come out of this system at a peak, around 200,000 without power across much of the Maritime. Still more fallout to come in the next 24 hours. And at a peak inland, a wind gust of 117 kilometers an hour. That's equivalent to a Category 1 hurricane. So incredible wind and rain, not as catastrophic as we saw around this time last year with Hurricane Fiona, but still a ton of rain was seen, and reports of upwards of 80 millimeters of rain for many in parts of coastal Nova Scotia, along with some coastal eroding and, of course, storm surge. Now, while there was a tropical flare to the temperatures for many in Atlantic Canada, with this post-tropical system experiencing temperatures that are more reminiscent of June, we also had a taste of some really nice, pleasant weather. Back here at home, we've been enjoying a few really nice days, plenty of sunshine and warm temperatures. Time to have the shorts and t-shirt out for many of the mid-afternoon heat periods as well. But will it last? That is the big question. Come the start of this work week, an upper-level trough looks to set up shop for a couple days. It's not going to be much to write home to mom about, but definitely a little bit more fall chill in the air, Talia. But I'll tell you about in the long range how summer is going to be making one last stand before next weekend. Well, hopefully not the last, but certainly a notable one.
Thanks for that, Sophia.
Welcome.
More than 50 cities across Canada, including Toronto, are participating today in a global rally to end fossil fuel use.
We are here specifically this weekend because starting next week,
the UN is going to have a big climate summit, and they've called on all the world leaders to come and bring new ambition because we're not doing enough on climate. Now, we are here to say that new ambition, those new commitments, they need to be about the end of fossil fuels.
This past summer was the hottest summer ever, with record heat felt across the globe. But there's still optimism that it's not too late to take action against climate change.
I do believe that we can do better for our children, for our future. We know climate change is here, the crisis is upon us, and that we are in a position where the window of opportunity to act, we still have one. If we all stand up together, we can solve this, but our time is running out and we all need to stand up together.
A new report this week showed Canada as one of 5 global north countries involved in oil and gas expansion through 2050. Demonstrations will continue throughout the weekend. It's been 1 year since Mahsa Amini's death in police custody set off some of the biggest protests in Iran. There were more protests today, including here in Toronto, to mark the anniversary.
It's the least we could do. We're out here, we have the freedom to dress how we choose, and we have certain rights out here, and we can speak our mind, and we can share the names, and we can chant, and we can protest without being in harm.
There were protests and a large police presence deployed in Iran's mostly Kurdish areas in anticipation of unrest. Amini's father was also briefly detained. The death of the 22-year-old triggered months of some of the biggest protests against the Islamic Republic's Shia clerical rule. She was accused of flouting mandatory dress codes. LGBTQ organizations are sounding the alarm around what they're calling an unprecedented number of hate attacks against the queer community. To address the issue, members of the community are coming together in Ottawa this weekend for what could end up being the largest ever meeting of LGBTQ leaders in the country. The event is being organized by Enchanté Network, which supports and connects more than 200 LGBTQ community organizations across the country. Tyler Boyce is the network's executive director. He joins me now to talk about this weekend's event. Thanks for being here, Tyler. Can you start by telling us more about the recent rise in hate attacks?
Yeah, so we all saw the really alarming data come out of StatsCan, a 64% increase in police-reported hate crimes against queer and trans communities. So obviously, that can't be the case. So we're coming together and doing what marginalized folks have always done, organizing, planning the way forward, and actioning that future.
And tell us a little more about this weekend's event. What will that look like, and what do you hope will come of it?
Yeah, so we have hundreds of queer, trans, and two-spirit leaders coming together in Ottawa this weekend. Folks have actually just started to arrive. We also have invited foundations, unions, government partners from all levels of our government to really address this issue of unprecedented rates of hate against our community. Something unique about this conference is that we're not only looking at hate through one lens, but we're really taking an intersectional and a sectoral approach to this work. We're looking at hate in the legal sphere, healthcare, housing, and the goal is really to end up with some intersectional policy.
And why is an event like this so significant?
It's significant because we are seeing it all around us. Society is very clearly going through a transformation. As a Black person and as a queer person, I understand that the rights that I have today came because marginalized folks organized long before I was even an idea. Today, we carry that responsibility to build on a legacy of power, to be able to make sure that society is a place for everybody and we can all see ourselves in it.
And what would you say to someone who maybe wasn't planning to attend today and who isn't a part of the queer community? Why would you want to see everyone there today?
Honestly, the issue of hate against our communities is not just an issue for queer, trans, and two-spirit folks. It is of concern and should be of concern for anybody concerned with the state of fundamental freedoms in this country. Marginalized communities aren't pawns to win cheap political points. We're members of this society, contributing members of this society, and we should all be concerned when folks are being excluded.
All right, thanks, Tyler, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Tyler Boyce is the Executive Director of the Enchanté Network. Welcome back. This weekend is the world premiere of a new exhibit called Ukraine, Our Home. It features immersive projections showcasing the art of the indigenous people of Crimea, alongside the work of Ukrainian-Canadian artists whose pieces were inspired by the beauty of the country. Some of the work has never been seen in North America before. The exhibit is part of the Bloor West Village Ukrainian Festival. Take a look.
So we're currently standing at Lighthouse Art Space. It's located at 1 Yonge Street. It's what was known as the Toronto Star building. And what Lighthouse ended up doing in 2020, we've taken over abandoned printing press rooms of the Toronto Star and recreated it into a cultural space, a multimedia cultural space.
So when people come to this exhibit and they see the art and the graphics on the wall here, how many artists are behind that?
So you'll probably see over 50 different artists. It's Canadian, Ukrainian, Crimean Tatar artists from Canada, United States, and as well as Crimea itself. So in order to create an immersive exhibit, and specifically this segment about Canadian Ukrainian artists, we ended up having access to the collections of Seredok, a cultural center in Winnipeg, and we've analyzed over 900 artworks that they had in their collections of Canadian Ukrainian artists, about 500 meters of textiles, sculpts, and other art artifacts, and we ended up combining it into this exhibition that you'll see today.
The second part of this immersive exhibition is captivating the history of Crimea and its indigenous people. Canadians will learn about history of Crimean Tatar people, the indigenous people of Crimea, and also they will see the beautiful art, vibrant culture, and also the challenging situation they are facing today under Russian occupation. Through the beauty and colors and the history, people will learn more than like watching news, for example, sometimes.
This is our 27th year production of the Bloor West Village Toronto Ukrainian Festival. Right now we're in our satellite location, the Lighthouse, which has specific programming this year dedicated to the Tatar people and their history in Crimea. The rest of our programming is on location on Bloor West Village on Bloor Street, between two subways, the Jane Street subway station and the Runnymede subway station. And we have a non-stop program of activities both on the stage and on the ground.
Why would you encourage people to come and see this exhibit? What will they learn?
So you will see the rich Ukrainian culture and how this culture is able to move with time. You know, Ukrainian culture is rich. It's rich in history, in cultural value, and so on. But it also is able to move along with the styles and the, so to say, fashion of cultural projects of today. For example, you will see artworks from that are not on display right now. A lot of these artworks that you'll see are either in storage or being protected from, or currently in Ukraine that are being protected from, you know, the missiles and the war itself. Right now, we want to show that Ukraine is not just about war. It's not about the big problem that we have, of course, for the territory. However, Ukraine is also this country that has rich Ukrainian culture, that has talents, that has an ability to create new and innovative art. The entire exhibit that you see here has actually been created and put together in Ukraine. So we've actually had artists and professionals work in Ukraine to create this exhibit that you'll see here today. Despite, you know, constant bombings, despite loss of power, they managed to put this exhibit together for us to see with peaceful skies above us. Ukrainian culture is not Russian culture, that Ukrainian culture is a very self-defined culture and has its own identity, and that Ukrainians are defending this exact culture today.
There's a live look at Toronto tonight as we head to break. Partly cloudy and sitting at 21 degrees. Sophia's back with a look at the long-range forecast. That's coming up. Finally tonight, a laneway renaming ceremony was held today in honor of Canadian director Kit Hood.
It's to recognize his involvement with Degrassi, but with other projects as well. I mean, this building, the film house, the actual film production was shot, interviews were done, a lot of the editing went on. It actually became a shelter for women afterwards. So my father was always involved in community projects as well as wanting to work with the community.
Aside from his work in the community, Hood was known for his work in television, co-creating the teen series Degrassi. The show was a staple for generations of Canadians and has had many spin-offs since the original, which made its debut in 1987. Sophia's back now with a look at our extended forecast. What's the rest of the week looking like?
Well, a change is afoot due to this northwest flow that we have coming in right now. We've had a glorious few days, lots of sunshine, lovely end of summer flavor. Northwest wind bringing in a bit of an upper level trough. Now, right now, the clouds are coming in after a pleasant and seasonal day. Your Sunday afternoon features some showers, power showers, and even a rumble of thunder or two, but still at seasonal. And then this trough comes in behind. Look at the temperatures for your Monday morning up around the Georgian Bay, barely at the double digits. Could have frost even further up to the north. For your Monday afternoon, you're on the cool side of seasonal, and it stays that way for your Monday and your Tuesday because that trough that brought you the showers, or that will bring you the showers on Sunday, will also be sticking around as a cool pool of air, cooler seasonal air for the first half of your work week. It's not until Wednesday that you jump back up to seasonal, but we have a lucky streak by the end of the week and into next weekend. Our temperatures will be into the high 20s again for a little summer 2.0 with a humidex maybe even into the low 30s. So not bad. That's all you can ask for. Bit of a tropical flavor happening right now in Atlantic Canada with that post-tropical storm still at play. Wanted to leave you with this last little bit of satellite imagery that shows this sprawling system really spreading out, actually resembling more of a nor'easter type flavor right now for many in Atlantic Canada. Talia.
Thanks, Sophia. That's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Before we go, we're going to take you to the city's waterfront, where the world's largest rubber duck has returned for the Toronto Waterfront Festival. The enormous inflatable bath toy weighs 30,000 pounds and stands 6 stories high. You can catch an in-person glimpse until tomorrow. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at